spectacle because there's two players just battling for position. Oh my.
And they're still going. Now it's Cunningham and continue. And players and officials now getting involved.
Option, you know, pulling the chair. But fighting for position, but I mean, I will say, release and jump around would also be in the game. Sometimes you don't have to do.
A regular season meeting between Indiana and Phoenix turned into one of the more contentious sequences of the WNBA season, producing 3 technical fouls, a wave of player reactions, and an extended argument among fans over who was responsible for letting the situation escalate as far as it did. The flashpoint emerged from what initially looked like a routine physical exchange in the paint, the kind of contact that happens dozens of times in any given game. Players fought for position, arms tangled, and neither side gave ground easily. That alone was nothing unusual for a matchup involving these two teams. Indiana has built a reputation this season for playing under constant scrutiny, with every possession examined more closely than in years past. And Phoenix has long been known for a physical, veteran-driven style that doesn't back down from contact. Combine those two tendencies, and the conditions for tension were already in place before the opening tip. What changed the tone of the game was the reaction that followed the initial contact. A stare lingered longer than it needed to. A shove followed that, by most accounts, did not need to happen. From there, the situation shifted quickly from a physical possession into a confrontation involving multiple players from both teams. SOPHIE Cunningham was the first to insert herself directly into the moment. She did not hang back to observe. She moved into the situation immediately, signaling to everyone on the floor that she had no intention of letting the exchange continue as it had started. That decision changed the energy of the game almost instantly. Players from both benches converged, officials moved in to separate the group, and the crowd noise rose sharply as the building reacted to what was unfolding in real time. At that point, the situation stopped being about a single possession and became, in the eyes of many watching, a question of who would control the rest of the game. DeWanna became part of that equation. Bonner has a long track record in moments like this. She plays physically, she does not avoid confrontation when a game gets heated, and her involvement added another layer to an already tense exchange. Caitlin Clark's name entered the conversation as well, even though she was not the player who initiated the confrontation. That distinction did not matter much to the broader reaction. Clark's presence on the floor changes how every physical play gets interpreted around her, a dynamic that has followed her since she entered the league. Every hard foul, every shove, every technical called in her vicinity gets filtered through the attention that follows her specifically. When the technical fouls were assessed, one of them went to Clark, and that single decision became the center of the discussion that followed the game, both online and among the viewers tracking the broadcast. This is where the frustration voiced by fans becomes relevant to understanding how the moment was received. A significant portion of the audience watching this game did not focus primarily on the players involved in the physical exchange. Instead, the technical foul issued to Clark became the central point of criticism. Many viewers felt the call was difficult to justify, given that she was not the one who escalated the situation, and that frustration extended into a broader critique of the officiating throughout the game. Some viewers were direct in their assessment of the officials working the game, describing their performance in blunt terms and arguing that the level of control exercised over the situation did not match what the moment required. That criticism fits into a larger pattern that has followed Fever games this season. Every contested call draws more attention than it would in a typical regular season matchup, in part because of how much scrutiny already surrounds this particular team and this particular player. When a technical foul lands on Clark in a sequence she did not start, it reinforces a perception among a portion of the fan base that officiating decisions are not always proportionate to what actually happened on the floor. Whether or not that perception holds up under closer review, it shaped how this game was discussed once it ended. The technical fouls did not bring the calm that usually follows a flashpoint like this. In most cases, once fouls are assessed and players are separated, a game resets. Possessions become more controlled, players take a step back emotionally, and the broadcast moves on. That did not happen here. Every possession that followed carried a different weight. Matchups felt more personal. Screens involved more contact than usual. Rebounds turned into more physical battles than they otherwise would have been. The entire second half played out under the shadow of what had happened earlier, with both teams clearly aware that the temperature of the game had changed. Fans tracking the game online reacted in two broad directions. One group argued that the physicality and intensity on display is exactly the kind of competition the league has been building toward, a sign that rivalries are becoming more personal and more meaningful as visibility around the league grows. The other group argued that the situation should never have been allowed to escalate that far, and that the officiating crew lost control of the game once the initial confrontation began. Within that second group, the technical foul on Clark became the specific example used to support the argument that the officials were not managing the situation effectively. Several comments framed the call as emblematic of a broader issue with how games involving Clark are officiated, suggesting that the standard applied to her differs from the standard applied to other players in similar situations. There was no consensus on who won the exchange in terms of public perception. Some viewers credited Cunningham for stepping in to defend her team and stabilize the situation before it could get worse. Others argued that her involvement actually escalated things beyond where they needed to go. That divide extended to how people evaluated Bonner's role as well, with some viewers pointing to her veteran presence as a stabilizing factor and others suggesting her physicality added unnecessary fuel to an already heated exchange. Running alongside the discussion of the confrontation itself was a separate strand of criticism connected to Phoenix's season more broadly. A number of viewers expressed disappointment with where the Mercury currently stand compared to where the franchise was in recent seasons. A team that built a reputation for competing at a high level and challenging for postseason positioning has not matched that standard this year, and viewers who have followed Phoenix closely noted the gap between past performances and the current trajectory. That disappointment shaped some of the commentary around this particular matchup as well, with viewers framing the on-court tension as one of the more notable moments of an otherwise difficult season for the franchise. The broader context here matters. Every Fever game this season has carried additional weight, in part because of the attention surrounding Clark, and in part because of how often Indiana's games have featured contested officiating decisions, organizational friction, and storylines that extend beyond what happens during the 40 minutes of regulation. This particular contest fits into that pattern. The technical foul on Clark became the focal point not simply because of what happened on the floor, but because it arrived in a season where officiating decisions involving her have already drawn repeated scrutiny from fans, media, and at times from people directly connected to the team. Long after the final whistle, the conversation around this game did not settle into a single narrative. There was no clean explanation that satisfied everyone watching. What existed instead was a collection of clips, replays, and arguments split along familiar lines. Some viewers pointed to Cunningham as the player who changed the tone of the game the moment she stepped into the confrontation. Others pointed to Bonner as the player who set the physical standard that the rest of the game followed. And a significant portion of the audience pointed directly at the officiating crew, arguing that the technical foul on Clark was the clearest example of a decision that did not match the actual flow of the confrontation. That last point deserves more direct attention than it sometimes receives in coverage of moments like this. When a player who did not initiate a confrontation still ends up with a technical foul, it raises a fair question about how officials are reading the situation in real time. Officials have to make split-second judgments during a chaotic sequence, and those judgments do not always align with how the moment looks on replay or how it is remembered by the players involved. In this case, the gap between Clark's actual involvement and the penalty she received became the detail that stuck with much of the audience well after the final score was set. This is not the first time officiating has become a central storyline around Fever games this season, and it is unlikely to be the last. The team's games consistently draw a level of attention that places every call under a brighter spotlight than it would face in a less scrutinized matchup. That dynamic cuts in both directions. It means moments of genuine controversy get amplified, but it also means that any decision perceived as questionable, fair or not, becomes part of an ongoing conversation about how this team and this player are officiated compared to others around the league. What happened between Indiana and Phoenix will likely be remembered less for the specifics of the confrontation itself and more for what it added to that ongoing conversation. Cunningham's decision to step in directly, Bonner's physical presence in the middle of it, and the technical foul that landed on Clark all became separate threads in a debate that extended well beyond the final buzzer. For a Phoenix team already dealing with a season that has fallen short of recent expectations, and for an Indiana team that continues to play under more scrutiny than almost any other roster in the league, this game added one more data point to a season that has rarely been short on storylines. Whether the larger takeaway is about increasing physicality across the league, the pressure that follows Clark into every game she plays, or the consistency of officiating in moments that require quick and accurate judgment, the reaction to this particular game made one thing clear. Fans are not simply watching the score anymore. They are watching every whistle, every technical, and every decision that shapes how these games are remembered, and they are increasingly willing to say when they believe those decisions did not match what actually happened on the floor.